The U.S. is facing right now a deficit in housing, leaving a lot of Americans struggling to be able to buy a home or even rent a home. Are Americans ever going to see relief, or is the shortage here to stay? I thought we'd talk about that with Ed Brady, who is CEO of the Home Builders Institute. Mr. Brady, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Thank you, Lars. I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Now, I have told my audience that we've seen a little bit of relief, which I think is tied into deportations because apartment rents appeared to have trended down a little bit last year. And we saw housing prices in some markets where they got rid of some of the ridiculous government regulations, like San Antonio and Austin, Texas, that they got some things to happen. But what else do we need to do to make it possible for the private sector to build housing for Americans?
Well, I think your examples of housing pricing declines are direct relation to those deregulation, anti-growth, or the appeal repeal of the anti-growth kind of sentiments that certain communities and cities and states have adopted. And so it starts there. I mean, you've got to get the regulatory burden reduced for builders, land developers to be able to build the product that we need at an affordable cost. We estimate that 25%, Lars, of a $400,000 house, 25% is a regulatory burden expense.
$100,000 of government paperwork, basically, right?
That's exactly right. That goes from land use, density, to codes, to impact fees. I mean, there's a myriad of different regulatory burdens that add that cost. Multifamily is higher. And so, we got to start there. Obviously, lower the interest rates, the more affordable for first-time buyers, certainly who are on, limited income. So there's a number of different things that we need to do, but you hit the nail on the head, that the regulatory burden in municipalities and cities that are placing those burdens are just pricing people out of home ownership.
Now, I got to tell you, Ed, I'm kind of a Neanderthal, so I look for simple, sometimes blunt force ways to solve this. Most of this is at the state and local level and not at the federal level. Am I correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, because of the 25% burden, much of that 25% burden is land use, which is statutorily ordinances. Those are all, state and local regulations that the federal government can potentially incentivize municipalities and local governments to act in a good way, but they can't control those are local ordinances.
Well, I was going to propose this, and Ed, I've been pitching this idea for maybe 6 months. It might be longer than that, but here's the idea. You've got the biggest players in financing are Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and FHA. Maybe even USDA does some loans that are more ag-related, but they can deal with housing as well. If those agencies were to say, well, there are some states that are doing it the right way, and they have sensible regulations. I'm not talking about zero regulations on where you can build and how you can build, although in my heart of hearts, I'd like to see a complete private sector. If it's your land, you can do with your land what you want. But I know we're not going to get to that. But if the federal government and those federal agencies or pseudo-federal agencies like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and FHA were to say, if you've got a state that has sensible regs, you're going to get a half a point lower on home mortgages or a full point lower. And the other states, just to make it revenue neutral, will pay more. So if you're crazy California and it's almost 30% in government regulation, guess what? When you walk in to get that mortgage, your mortgage broker or whoever you're dealing with, your bank, is going to say, I'm sorry, because the state of California is crazy, your mortgage is going to cost less. So the people in some other state that has more sensible rules or city that has more sensible rules is going to pay less. Would that be a way of approaching this?
I love the idea. The carrot and the stick. I mean, you're incentivizing good behavior, and whether it's through Fannie or Freddie or through the FHFA, that incentivizes local states or communities to not impose those heavy restrictions by giving points off or on your mortgage or less mortgage insurance. Whatever incentive we can create for municipalities and cities and states to act in a responsible way And, nobody's.
Ed, did I lose you? Oh, you dropped out for a second. Go ahead, Ed. You were saying nobody's suggesting what?
Nobody's suggesting that we're against code and safety in housing, right? You got to build a safe environment, but there's overkill. The pendulum. I quote the most egregious, probably most recent. HUD came out with a requirement that anything that was financed by FHA or USDA, you mentioned, had to be up to the 2021 energy efficient codes, the IECC codes.
Yep.
Well, that requirement in of itself would add anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 to the cost of a single family unit, and there is no payback. That's a 100-year return on that $30,000 on the amount of savings, and so there has to be a cost benefit analysis on every potential regulatory burden or code burden. Keeping in mind safety, but it has to be responsible. And if we can award people, incentivize people to do those things versus a punitive, I think it's more powerful to incentivize good behavior.
I mean, I'd love to see all the states just simply go to these things on their own. But if they need a nudge from the federal government, then fine. Why don't we do it that way? Is any one state doing it the right way right now in the view of the Home Builders Institute?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, the Home Builders Institute, we train skilled labor. No, let me just pitch real quick. Sure. You have to have good skilled labor in this country, because if you don't, we can't build affordable, accessible housing. And all of these states and the federal government have to invest in that, from high school on up, have to invest in good skilled labor. That will produce better product, more quality product, and more cost efficient product. We're waiting on labor all day long, which costs money, and so we have to reduce the stress on the labor force. But yeah, I mean, look at the high growth areas. I mean, it's you look at the map, look at kind of the smile, say California, which is very restrictive, but Arizona, Texas, Florida, North Carolina, kind of these high growth, Tennessee, high growth areas that are creating jobs, that are putting less regulatory burden on a builder and developer.
And that's the way to get it done. That is Ed Brady, who is CEO of the Home Builders Institute. Ed, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Back in a moment, we'll get to your phone calls and emails. You're listening to the Lars Larson Show.